No TV and no beer make Homer something something.
Go crazy?
No more to do. All right, hey guys, Drew here from Horror, Sci-Fi, and Beyond, and we got the one and only Eric back. How you doing,
Hey
man?
everyone. Doing good. Doing good. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. So if you didn't know what that intro was about, today we're gonna do a top five list of the King of Horror himself, Stephen King. So we're gonna do like the top five adaptations. So it could be anything. It could be anything outside the book. So like TV shows, miniseries, movies. There've been a few stage plays. Anything goes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We're doing like five, like we're doing like the top five. We're doing like 5-1 and like my favorite ones, right?
5-1.
5-1.
Yeah. And then before we get to one, we'll do honorable mentions if you have any.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, like Stephen King, what can we like say about him? Like he's been pumping like masterpieces like out from like since like the mid '70s. There's like Harry, The Stand, The Shining, Same on.
Yeah, so many like great like classic stories that have wandered any like the adaptations of them have gone anywhere from like masterpieces to like hot garbage. So this will be an interesting like list of what of what we consider as top to bottom.
Yeah. So real quick, how did you find out about King?
So I grew up in the '90s, so that was around like the big boom of like television, like those TV movies that came out around that time or miniseries. And so like my first introduction to Stephen King was those and like kind of seeing like snippets of like The Langoliers and The Stand and Rose Red and all those ones from like the '90s. It originally with Tim Curry. And so like seeing those and being like real freaked out because I was like a kid at the time.
Hey Eric.
Then what up?
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in the can? You do. Will you better let the poor guy out?
They haven't aged quite as well upon rewatch.
Yeah, I'm not scared of the Tim Curry Pennywise, but he is. I'll be lying if I told you he was not entertaining. Like that dude, like was so funny in that movie.
Oh yeah, no, I think for me there's a lot of nostalgia that goes with the '90s miniseries, but I do, other than maybe The Stand, I would say most of them are pretty okay. I'll say okay, and I know people probably are like, no, some of these are masterpieces, and some of them are pretty good, especially for like around the time. There's a lot of like terrible ones. I will say Storm of the Century still holds up really well. Like Storm of the Century is probably the best one to come out of that era. But like, yeah, that's how I got started. I had a friend in high school too who read a lot of the books, so he got me into like The Stand, and I read the unabridged version or like the big thick masterpiece.
Oh yeah,
that's like 900 pages. And then I've read like Desperation and it's all those. There's quite a few of them I still haven't read. Like I've never read It, and I've never read like Salem's Lot and stuff like that. And I'd love to go back and start revisiting those at some point. And I haven't read a lot of his newer stuff, especially like a lot of the newer ones in the past like 20 years, really. So I've only like read stuff like '90s previously, so '90s or '70s.
Yeah,
but
that's
usually where mine started at. Where'd you start at?
So I remember we went over to my cousin's house, and this is back when we lived in Florida. Can you hear me, Eric?
Yes.
Yeah, you froze up.
I think it froze up. Whoops.
Yeah. So we went we were at my cousin's house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason I don't remember, and he had a bunch of I think he had like all King's books, like on a bookshelf, like lined up. Like he had a whole bookshelf full of King novels. And my mom, being a horror fan, knew about Stephen King. And she was telling me about, like, I remember the two I remember the most was Carrie, and then because it appealed to me because like the killer clown thing.
Oh yeah.
And besides, like maybe like the Joker from Batman, I never at that point never really connected like that clowns were creepy. To me, clowns were fun. In my opinion, when I was a kid.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
And I'm
like Bozo and yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it really like got to me. And she told me that like maybe a year or two before I was born, she read that book and it scared the hell out of her. Like to the point where like she would have to like throw like she would read on her bed, right? And she would throw pillows like on her floor. And so like she would like jump on top of the bed and like on the top of the pillow because he thought like that damn clown was like under her bed.
The bed. Got him.
Yeah. But anyways, and I read quite a few of his books. I read it when the new one was going to come out. I read Misery. I'm in the middle of reading it right now. Really good. Annie Wilkes is fucking crazy in that book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you thought she was crazy in the movie, she's 10 times worse in the book.
The hobbling scene in the movie is nothing compared to what kind of she does in the book.
Yeah. I read The Shining, which is my favorite because I just related to it. Carrie I read, Doctor Sleep I read, and Pet Sematary I read.
Pet Sematary is good.
Yeah.
Pet Sematary may be my favorite book of his, I think.
Yeah. That's a close second.
Yeah.
And then probably like Misery, reading it again, probably number 3. But anyways, let's get to this top 5 list. Since you're the guest, I'll let you go first. What's your number 5? Stephen King.
My number 5 is so I kind of let off with so there's no I don't have any miniseries on my list. Just as preface. But I do love the miniseries and I think they're great. I just don't think they are my top 5. But my number 5 is a guilty pleasure that I know a lot of people hate, but I love it. I've seen it so many times. I've probably seen it more than any other Stephen King, second to maybe Shawshank. And that is Maximum Overdrive with Emilio Estevez, directed by King himself, with an all AC/DC soundtrack. It is. I'm
gonna scare the hell out of you.
By all intents and purposes, it is not a good movie, but it is hilarious and it's fun and it's silly and it's kind of gory and it's not scary, but to me, it is like it just reminds me of like being a kid and like I've seen that movie like so many times. I don't know what it is about it. The idea of like inanimate objects coming back to life is scary, but in this movie, it is just utter silliness. And
I've never seen Maximum Overdrive. I probably should, but doesn't that movie start out with Stephen King going up to an ATM machine and like it's like he's messing up and he calls him an asshole? Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yes. There's so many like moments like that are just like, this is not scary. It borderlines on like satire, but it's not. I don't think the movie itself isn't smart enough to like pick up on that. It's like that. It's an anomaly that I still watch to this day. I watched it like 6 months ago, and I'll probably watch it again in another 6 months. Like I love that movie.
Yeah, I need to check that out for sure.
It's not a good movie. I'll preface it by saying it's not a good movie.
Right.
You should go into it with knowing that, and you'll have a great time.
All right. So mine number 5, I picked actually all of them I picked actually good Stephen King. Unlike you. No.
This is my top 5, right? Like it's not if it was going on like what I think is the best, that would not be in the list. But like
for sure.
As my top 5, like that's my number 5.
Yeah, so my number 5 is going to be Misery. He didn't make it out of the cocky duty car.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Misery is a really good, like kind of thriller, and it's interesting to see how Rob Reiner was so, I guess, attracted to the movie. Because I don't know if you have the Stout Factory version of this.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I just recently bought it for some birthday
Mhm.
money, and
Mhm.
he said that on the commentary that like since his dad was in comedy, he produced some comedies in the '60s or the '70s. I'm not sure which one it was.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Rob Reiner was like he was on like All in the Family, and so like he came from like an acting background and then moved into
Yeah,
like directing. Yeah. But all the
yeah,
stuff up
yeah,
until then was not horror. Yeah.
yeah. He did a lot of like comedy kind of stuff, and then he did like Stand By Me, which is
Yeah.
it has comedy elements in it, but it's more drama. And they did
Right.
like Misery, and he related to Paul Sullivan, where you had this God's author who is known for the Misery series, but he wants to do something else.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, he wants. I think it was like that in the book. They say it was like this novel he was working on called Fast Cars
Oh
about
yeah.
like slum kids in
Right.
like New York,
Right.
and
Something he like personally related to. That wasn't because he was tired of doing Misery. He was
yeah,
tired of doing like the Misery books, and so like I could see how he would relate to that, like that that arc, like being pigeonholed as sort of this sort of like comedy guy who's always doing sort of like lighthearted fare and
mm,
wanted to break out. Yeah.
yeah. Can't talk about this movie without talking about Kathy Bates' amazing performance. I actually find her scarier when she's nice
Hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
if Paul Sheldon says the wrong thing, then like his ass is grass.
Yeah.
See
Yeah.
will flip the hell out.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And when she goes there, I love all of like her like made up curse words. Like her made
yeah,
up
like
curse
Cock
words
of
make me
Duty.
laugh. Yeah, but there's like they're weird and scary at the same time, and like they especially take on like a sinister tone like later in the movie.
Yeah, and
Like
then there's that part where she was talking about like the chapter plays or whatever.
mm-hmm,
And then Paul Sheldon corrected her, saying that it was they're called serials, or we often call them serials. And
mm-hmm.
then he was like, "I know that, Mister Man." Like he says that.
Right, right.
Um,
It's that faking like nice. Yeah, it's
yeah. I think I honestly think this is another one of those movies like Silence of the Lambs or like The Dark Knight, where like you have like one performance that's like amazing, and then it kind of
mm-hmm.
overshadows like everybody else, and like you forget that like the other person's good too. So like
Oh yeah.
yeah, everybody knew that Anthony Hopkins is like amazing in Silence of the Lambs, but everybody forgets that Jodie Foster is amazing too.
Oh yeah.
I think it's the same thing here where Kathy Bates is amazing, but we forget that like James Caan is really good too.
Oh yeah, no, and he plays it so well as like sort of like the straight man to all this like absurdist sort of horrifying comedy that's playing off of. Like I think Carl Reiner is honestly like the perfect person to kind of make this because it borderlines on this sort of like weird area between like being so crazy it's funny to like
Mm.
that shift back and forth
Yeah,
is really
and what I
really
like about
fantastic.
what I like about Colin's performance is that like you got a good enough actor where like this is facial expressions, you kind of know where his mind is at, which you
Hmm.
don't have in film versus a book. You know,
Right,
you can read like pages of like monologue of like inner
right,
monologue.
right. Internal model, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I think Colin also has the right like balance or mix of like being very frustrated in the situation, and like that's kind of sly kind of sarcasm, like he's very hurt. And I just watched this movie recently like a
Yeah,
week ago. Paul Sutton is very sarcastic in this movie,
yeah.
and I think like you're with this crazy bitch, like you're stuck in her house, it's what how are you gonna react to that? I think he's so
Right.
perfect, he's like on
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, and he has to do almost all of his performance from like a like a laying down position. Like there is no way to be other than like the top half of his body. Like he cannot present any sort of like physicality of like moving or motion or anything like that. So to be able to like express emotion and frustration and stuff from a seated position has got to be like a challenge for any actor.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, what's your number 4?
Number 4 is my most recent one on the list, and or on his like I guess adaptation list, and it is The Mist, which was
I haven't seen that one
the
either.
first. It's good. It's good. And honestly, I would say if you haven't seen it, I would watch the black and white version.
Okay.
So
Can I get that on Amazon Prime?
I don't know. I'll have to look. If not, I'll let you borrow mine.
Okay.
Because I have the DVD with the black and white version on it. So overall, the special effects don't hold up. Like this was made it's probably close to a decade ago. I think it was like 2013. No, it was like 2008. So it's been over a decade now. And most of the special effects don't hold up very well. But where it really works is in its inner, like it's power struggles and it's sort of like political subtext within the supermarket hierarchy that these people develop. This sort of like proto society once they're like trapped inside with each other. I really loved all that stuff. And then the ending is
Oh yeah, I know about that. I know about that.
Do you know what the ending is? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Two things I want to comment on real quick is that this is actually Frank Darabont third King adaptation. His other two were Shawshank and Green Mile. Those were more like kind of character pieces. This is more like his first like straight up horror movie.
Right.
Right.
And this one's based on a short too, or like Shawshank was.
Yeah. Another thing I think is kind of interesting is I think a lot like other artists, they kind of they have like certain themes going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like Steven Spielberg has a lot talked about like father figures.
Of course,
whether reconnecting to fathers or like absent fathers or whatnot. I think King, one of his big themes is like he comments on like really like extreme radical like Christian characters in his movies. Because there's like isn't there like a character in there that's like in here named Miss Comro or whatever? And he's like really
the essentially like the third act the third act villain is not one of the like so-called monsters in the mist, but it's one of us amongst us sort of thing. And it is this, I can't remember what her name is, but it's Marcia Gay Harden, and she's amazing in it.
Yeah, and that kind of goes along the lines of like, Margaret White from Carrie, Amy Wells was kind of a relentless nut. I don't know if the Warden in Shawshank was Robert Blizzard. I never read the short story. I'm planning on reading After Misery. But in the movie, he was very like kind of like religious, like kind of crazy with his religion or his beliefs.
And that is definitely playing into The Mist as well. I think it not necessarily like religion in general, but it's the fundamentalism of like my belief is stronger and better than your belief, and therefore you deserve to die.
Yeah, and I
suffer because of it.
Yeah, and I don't think he hates Christianity. I think I heard in an interview that like I don't think he's necessarily like a Christian per se, but I think he believes in like God or higher power. Yeah, he just didn't like the fundamentalism. I think The Stand's like really the only time that I know of where like he paints a Christian in a positive light.
That's true.
Under Abigail.
Right. I'm trying to think. I feel like there's another one somewhere.
There has to be.
But I can't
remember. There's so many
stories. I'm sure there's out there. I'm sure someone in the comments will drop it and we'll go like, oh yeah, that guy. And because talk about Silver Bullet too, like the priest. Have you seen Silver Bullet?
No, that's like Gary Busey one, right?
It is Gary Busey. It is.
Yeah. I actually have it on DVD. I have it in like the Stephen King pack.
Right. It's not great, but I do. What's his name? He's in Lost Boys.
He's a Sutherland?
One of the Coreys. Corey.
The Hellman? Haim?
No, it's Haim. Corey Haim.
Yeah.
Corey Haim is in that, and he's pretty great. He's pretty great in it.
That's
Like
good.
he also carries the movie. But we're getting off topic. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is the most recent one, and that's gonna be 2019 Doctor Sleep, directed by Mike
Really?
Flanagan. Yeah.
Really? Oh, this is an interesting choice. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I just love the whole signing the thing. I like the whole like kind of sin to the father kind of thing. I won't get too much in my personal life, in this video, but when I read the signing of the book, like the second time, definitely, it really had a profound effect on me because I just related to Jack Torrance so much in my life, and then seeing Danny in the Doctor Sleep book and movie kind of go through the same kind of things, with his alcoholism that his father went through. Like it, I really like it. It really got to me. So did you see it? Did you see Doctor Sleep?
I have seen it. I like a lot of it, but I also I don't like our main villain. I didn't care for the main villain.
Oh, I disagree with you. I thought Rebecca Ferguson was amazing.
I thought she was good, but I think the character and the choices with like the hat and everything didn't work for me for some reason. Like nothing that didn't click. But the ending is amazing, and the beginning with Danny is amazing. I just wish that middle was like something about it, and I'll have to rewatch it. I haven't seen it probably since 2019.
Yeah, did you read the book?
Something in the middle didn't click. I haven't read the book, so I can't speak from that.
Yeah, the book is really good.
Yeah, but something in the middle didn't click for me. But the ending is super strong, and the beginning is really strong. But like something in the middle just didn't click up for whatever reason.
I think the two things that I thought was really cool in this movie was that Mike Flanagan had a Everest of a challenge to make where he had to make a sequel to the Shining book and then the Stanley Kubrick movie, which were two different approaches to that story. Where King had it more character based, where you almost feel bad for Torrance, where Kubrick kind of made, it's like Nicholson's performance in that movie. He made him an asshole. You just don't like Torrance in the Kubrick movie,
right?
But he was able to really combine the two, make it a sequel, honoring King's vision with the signing in the Doctor Sleep book, and then also honoring Kubrick's vision and putting the different images in there.
Yeah, no, I think it's like a really good marriage of both of them, especially in that ending where we start tying in really to The Shining, the movie. All that stuff visually looks really good, and it's really satisfying in a lot of ways, bringing it back home. I thought it was going to be, I was worried about it because I was afraid it was going to feel hokey or feel tack on to really tie back in The Shining. I haven't read the book, so I can't speak to that, but all of it, something was this is going to be interesting. I think I don't really know how it's all going to work. And for the most part, that ending, or especially the ending, is real strong, super
right. And I think Flanagan, I think he did a amazing job with adapting the novel, almost beat. This is almost a beat for beat novel. Right. And he when it gets disturbing, it is disturbing, especially with the baseball kid.
Yeah, I was about to say that part in the middle was ooh, that's too much.
Yeah, I actually thought the baseball kid scene was way more disturbing in the movie. I felt
yeah.
But anyways, man, what's your number 3?
Number 3, and staying with this theme of The Shining, it's The Shining.
Okay, which one?
The Stanley Kubrick one.
Okay.
I've seen the Steven Weber one, And while I think there are some great moments in it, it is one just too long, and
I never seen it.
the CGI shrubbery is not scary.
Yeah.
Less is more in some of those ways. But the Stanley Kubrick Shining was one of those movies that when I was a kid, I saw it when I was a kid, and my mom was like, "Can't watch that movie. That movie's too scary." And I was just like, "It can't be that scary." But it always felt like there was like when I watched it, because I watched it without her permission, so it was always like fine. It was like watching something that was forbidden, and so like it carried that air with it, and ultimately it's not like super gory. There aren't a lot of like scares.
It's more disturbing.
Yeah, and it's all about the build up to it. It's all about the build up and the release. And there's some really good releases in there, like the lady in the room in the shower, the hacks to Scatman.
The dude being in the bear costume, giving the other guy a
bear costume, super terrifying.
Yeah, I think that scene was jarring to a lot of people that didn't read the book and didn't get like what that was like referring to.
Oh, yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, well, yeah, you read the book, right?
Right, but after the fact, like I saw the movie first, and so like.
Well, I read the book first.
Happening. Okay.
Yeah, so I knew because the costume party.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny about that scene in the book, I love to do this thing where I'm reading a new a King book that I've never read before. I always try to find like the goofy moment, and there's 30 goofy King moments in the book, and that's the Topian animal is. I know some people like them. I think they're stupid.
They work.
The Hoods, and then the costume party when that one guy like dressed up as a dog, and he was like making dog noises. It was just weird.
Yeah, there's and I think this is what I really love about the Kubrick adaptation of it, because it is an adaptation and is not a beat for beat like some Harry Potter movies are basically just a filmed version of the book. This is a interpretation of the book, using it as like a source material and then building upon it and building something new out of it, which I really like. I know some people hate it, but I like it. There are two different mediums. King has this thing. He did it his way, and the book is great on its own, and the movie is great on its own. And I don't think they both have to be the exact same thing. I think they can be.
I think the perfect. I think it was like the perfect example of a filmmaker taking an author's work and kind of doing their own thing with that instead of just and with their own sensibility. I think Jurassic Park was the same thing. It's pretty different. From the book, where the book was really like kind of dark and graphic. But you got like Steven Spielberg, who's like the king of like the summer blockbuster. He brought that element to it.
Right. Yeah. No. And I will say, if you get the chance, you should see the signing on the big screen.
Oh, really? I'm hoping.
I saw it. It's like I saw it like 5 years ago. Saw it on the big screen because it came on one of those like rerun things.
Yeah, I'm hoping they like to say like horror movies. Every once in a while at my local theater. And I'm hoping that's one they say this year.
Yeah. It'd be worth it. It's worth it because they're real cheap. They're like $5. Worth
it.
Opening helicopter shots alone, worth it.
Yeah, we just got a new outlet TV from LG, and I was watching a little bit Sony. Looked amazing on there. Cool. But anyways, on to my number 3, and it's another Mike Flanagan movie. And now that's Netflix's Girls Game.
Huh. Interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I just really this was my second Mike Flanagan movie. The first one I watched the same year in October. It was Oculus. And I remember watching that movie and I'm like, wow, like I'm truly like in the hand of a master here. Like I think this Mike Flanagan guy, he really, truly, honestly gets horror at its bare basic twist is a human story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he takes this material, which I didn't think the book was that great. I did not like Gerald at all. I think he was pretty much a misogynistic piece of shit, which he's supposed to be. But I think you set him up here where you kind of sort of like him a little bit. But like in the book, it's right off it begins when like he's handcuffed on the bed, and they're getting down to it, so to speak. He just writes. King just writes him as like the complete asshole, and I just not like him at all. But I don't know, this whole way he did it, and then he kind of took Jesse's inner monologue from the book, and then it made it to where like she was seeing a version of herself and then a version of her husband or her dead husband. I thought that was real neat.
Yeah.
I thought all the flashback stuff was really good, especially
maybe like one of the most disturbing things I've seen in a movie in a minute was the Eclipse Scene.
Yeah. Well,
hard to watch.
Well, I thought what was cool about that, or not cool, but what was I guess interesting about that, he took a scene that was very graphic in the novel. I mean, it's gotta be because it's Stephen King. Yeah, he tried to disturb him. He took that right there, and he did it very subtly, to where you know what was going on.
Right, without being graphic about it.
Yeah, because you're working with the underage child actress in that scene, so you can't do it too. Yeah, I thought Flanagan did it the right amount. Why in the actual fucking hell didn't Carla Gugino get nominated for this movie? She is amazing.
She's great. I don't know why she hasn't been in more things or is more widely like recognized. She has been great in everything I've ever seen her in. She always plays her part to the T.
I thought she was amazing there. But I mean, it's an Oscar, so like, but they don't
especially like being essentially in sort of like a James Caan situation again, where she is immobile for vast majority of the movie.
She's pretty much immobile more times in this movie than James Caan is in Misery. But he's in the wheelchair, so he's able to go places. Yeah. Like she's in bed the whole movie. Essentially.
Yeah. I need to rewatch it. It's been a minute. I remember it. I remember going like, pretty good. It's pretty good. But I need to check it. I need to watch it again.
Yeah. So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a movie. I went back and forth on this one a lot. And ultimately, I came down to this one is probably a movie that will live longer than Darabont and King. I mean, as far as like rememberability and like, it's Shawshank Redemption is probably like a masterpiece as far as like long form storytelling about an intimate situation and on like a multi-year grand scale, but told not bombastically like the Green Mile does. The Green Mile feels like Hollywood schmaltz by comparison. You know what I mean? I like the Green Mile, but it's not Shawshank Redemption. And maybe it's probably the best movie Darabont may ever make, even though I really like The Mist. And it may be arguably like Stephen King's most important work as far as like overall movie about a theme and telling about redemption and feeling like hopeful by the end of it. For the possibilities that life can bring, and the performances are all great. Like Tim Robbins kills it. Morgan Freeman you really can't. I mean, that's kind of really the movie that made Morgan Freeman. And
James Redmore as Brooks is great. That whole monologue when he gets out to prison, like that's like the part when like he like hangs himself, or it's implied that he hung himself. Like that's like some of the most like heartbreaking stuff I've ever seen in a movie. Because even though they're fictional characters in the fictional story, like that's all too real. Like you will live in prison for years on end or decades, like in Brooks' case, and like you just get used to it at a certain point.
Of course. Right.
And it was just so attractive to see that happen.
Right. And I feel like, I don't know this for a fact. I have no idea if this is true or not, but I feel like this was one of the first movies that really painted inmates as sympathetic, especially in like modern times, especially in the 90s on. I feel like there was a couple in the 70s. I think there was a Clint Eastwood movie called Escape from Alcatraz, but I feel like that was more of like an adventure movie. Like this feels more like a human character drama where it's painting these quote unquote criminals as people, regardless of what their past sins may be.
Another thing I thought was kind of cool about this movie is like, if you think about it, this is like one of probably the first King movie. Can you hear me? And I'm first up again. Can you hear me?
Oh, hey, yeah, you're back.
Yeah, another thing I thought was kind of neat about this movie was this was probably one of the first King movies where his name was kind of hit the mainstream in a way.
Right.
I mean, I think he was a big name when like The Signing and like Carrie, like those are like respected movies.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, for sure. Like this was one where like this is in like the mid 90s where there's been I mean it's the same year that the Shining television show or the miniseries came out. And he'd been making movies for years and years and years. Like Stand By Me was probably the first one that kind of like solidified him as sort of like a storyteller that didn't just make horror movies. And then this one was the one that sort of like broke them. Like he was already mainstream at that point, but this was the one that was like, this is like a good story to hang your hat on, like a Stephen King one. It was a little different from everything else, but it still had a lot of the same themes, and it's still like I think it still resonates very well, like all these years later.
Yeah, well, yeah, and yeah, that too. But I just meant as far as like people's perception, because like you get movies like Maximum Overdrive, The Lawnmower Man, The Mean Killer, or whatever that are this was kind of like smolchy kind of horror movie. But this is like a really like solid like drama movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on to my number 2, which is your number 3, I believe, and it's The Signing.
Oh.
Yeah.
How do you feel about The Shining?
I freaking love this movie. Yeah, this movie's amazing. Wendy, darling, light of my life, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your freaking brains in. I love that part. Me and my mom reenact that scene all the time.
Right.
Give me the bat, Wendy. Just give me the bat.
So good.
What can we say about this movie? This movie's amazing. Like the visuals are amazing. Jack Nicholson's amazing. I used to not like Sally the Ball in this movie. And then I found out some of the crap he went through. I was like, wow, like this is generally like an actual woman being traumatized right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's bringing this emotion out, like a real life experience with her being abused by Stanley Kubrick.
Basically.
Yeah, and I almost feel bad for liking this movie because about that.
It is a movie that I go back and forth on that. I think that his tactics borderline or abusive and probably should not have happened. If the work was, that's a hard thing to go back and forth. I don't know. I think he was abusive in the movie. I think he was abusive to Shelley Duvall, and I don't think that sort of tactics can be condoned. I think that the work itself speaks. I think the work itself is solid regardless of those things. It's hard to separate the two though. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's I guess like that's sort of like the I guess like the sacrifice you kind of have to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, she knew what she. It's weird. It's hard to go back and forth on it.
Well, I mean, Stanley Kubrick is a pretty prolific director at this point. I mean, he was like considered like one of the greatest directors at this point. He did like 2001. Clockwork Orange.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I just have a hard time believing this. He didn't know his past, but it still did not make it right.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And she probably could have quit if she wanted to,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I mean, there's contractual obligations, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that
So
movie
who knows about all those
messed
things.
her up for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially like she's currently come back around in like sort of the zeitgeist, and she had like an interview a few years ago, and she's been like a recluse for a long time.
Yeah, the Dr. Phil one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not like how Dr. Phil handled that.
Dr. Phil's a hack anyway. But did you ever see Room? I think it's Room 237, the documentary about it.
I don't like maybe 30% of the theories, and I think a lot of it was kind of bullshit.
Yeah, I feel a lot of it's reaching. I feel like there are like nuggets in there that I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like,
What's your favorite like signing theory?
There was one recently, and I can't remember the full breadth of it, but it's about Wendy, and that she is essentially the protagonist of the movie, and that what she is seeing is not true. So it's not Jack Nicholson that is crazy, but it's that her perception of it is that. I'll have to find the YouTube link and send it to you. But there's like a YouTube video that goes into like this sort of like breaking it down, and that's the one recently that I've been like, ooh, that's an interesting.
Yeah, Haley Joel Osment had a pretty interesting take on Wendy. If you remember how Jack said at the beginning of the movie to Ullman, he said that see the regular ghost story connoisseur or fan or whatever. So when he goes into the parlor or whatever, she sees like skeletons. So it's sort of like kind of hokey, maybe.
Right.
Something like you were hearing a ghost story. That's interesting. Two of my favorite theories is I think it's about like the layout of the hotel. Like it's bigger on the outside than what it is on the inside. Like it doesn't match up. I think that whole idea of like a house like being bigger on the inside than on the than it is on the outside. I think that's freaky.
Yeah.
There's actually a horror book called House of Leaves. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I have, I think. Is it the one that's written backwards and like upside down and like
scribble
and stuff like
that?
Yeah,
I never read it, but I've seen so many reviews of it.
I haven't either.
It's really interesting. That stuff's like just freaks me out.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's like a super fascinating way to like write a novel like that about someone who is losing their mind, written from the perspective of like the author losing their mind, as if the author is the person. And it's cool. I've never read it, but I've always been interested to read it. Just lazy.
Yeah. Well, that's a book you really have to like dive into. It seems like. My second favorite signing theory is it was one that was pointed out in room 237 where this one lady, she was saying that like there's a ski poster in the game room. And she was pointing out, well, it's not a rental hotel. Why would they have a ski sign there or poster?
Right.
And she pointed out that that it's actually a minotaur.
Oh. And so the whole thing is a maze leading towards the monster at the center. Is that the theory? I can't remember.
Yeah. Because the maze. If you know anything about Greek mythology, the Minotaur was like in the center of a maze. Like go find them, or like he chased you or something. I don't exactly remember. Also, when Jack is looking outside, when Danny and Wendy are playing outside in the snow, he has a very kind of bull look to him. You know what I mean? So I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, we can talk about this movie for like days on end.
Oh yeah, we could just talk about The Shining. This could have just been The Shining podcast if we.
That could be like 4 hours discussed. Like really, do you think this is what's so crazy about The Shining? You can have a 3-hour conversation about one thing, about one theory.
Oh yeah, and you could easily find ways to refute it and also to back it up, like within the same movie. Like The Shining is a great movie that there are no easy answers but there are many possibilities.
Right, for sure. But anyways, before you get to number one, do you have any honorable mentions?
Oh man, there's so many. There are so many ones. Like I was looking back through like all of the ones that had been made in the movies and miniseries, and there's so many ones that I was like, "Ooh, that's great! Oh, I love that one," but I just couldn't make them number one. Stand By Me is always one that I've always loved. Just like a crisp like coming of age tale.
Yeah, I just rewatched that recently, or watched that for the first time recently.
Oh really? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
the whole Lardass scene, like hilarious. I loved it when I was a kid. It still holds up. And then I really love Misery and Dolores Claiborne. Both of those are
I
like
just bought
solid.
that one for the first time.
Dolores Claiborne.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little different than Misery, and I actually think maybe Kathy Bates may be better in Dolores Claiborne because
I disagree with you there.
she feels more human in that one, like but more nuanced and a little less like a cartoon in some ways. I mean, she's great in both movies, and it's hard to like dissect the two and go like this one's better, this one's not. But I love those two. And I feel like there was one more I had that I was like, ooh, that one I could almost make the list. Shoot, I can't think of it right now. But like all the ones from like the 80s, like all the Super Shock ones are always super fun, like Cat's Eye and Silver Bullet and all those ones, Salem's Lot, the TV movie. Like I love all those ones that are like kind of, they don't really hold up now. They're a little shocky, they're a little silly. All those are like super fun to go back and revisit. What about you? What you got, any honorable mentions?
I'll get to them after when I get to my number. Before I get to my number one. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the number one?
Number one for me is one that I think like marries like Stephen King's sort of like style, this sort of like 50s horror style meets with like a director who really knew how to translate that into something that was unique, but also played along with his themes really well. And that is a movie that I always go back to and is always like really fun. Creepshow.
Ooh, I haven't seen that one either.
You haven't seen it? Oh, you should watch it. It's great. It's an anthology movie, and those are always, they can always can be hit or miss. But I think it works best when there's like one director unifying all of them.
Yeah.
And so this
shit.
Yeah. that one is probably the weakest segment in the whole thing. But even that it's like it's fast and fun. There's so many like good moments and just like fun like pop art, like this sort of like marrying of these 50s like comic books to this sort of like Grizzly King style that I think George Romero did really well with, and it's written by King, so like it was his stamp of approval from the top.
Didn't Tom Atkins play the dad in that movie?
He is the bad in one of the many.
Okay.
I think there's 4 or 5 sequences in the whole thing. And there's so many like good ones in there. It's hard to pick which one. My least favorite one's probably the last one, but other than that, like it's man, as far as like a fun 80s movie that's like a romp that also like touches on some of like the similar just like fears of like the unknown and the ideas of like people essentially turning against each other and they're the real monsters. Like all this stuff plays in there like super well. Like I couldn't recommend it enough. Like Creepshow is one that to me like holds up, one, for its style and its like cohesiveness as far as an anthology goes, but also just in like conveying the themes and horror that King was really well at like bringing out in all of his work. So I love Creepshow. Creepshow is my number one.
All right, cool. So before I get to my number one, here's my honorable mentions. Pet Sematary, the original. Not nearly as good as the book, but still pretty iconic.
Yeah.
Both the miniseries and the Andy Muschietti one. I think they both did different aspects of the book well. Wish the new one could have been better.
Yeah, I like the first one.
Yeah.
I like it part one, not as
Yeah.
much as it part two.
I know this is blasphemous, but I'm gonna go with the Carrie remake.
Oh, wait, the one with Chloe Moritz, Chloe
Yeah.
Grace Moritz in it. I've never seen that one.
Yeah, I think he's. I don't think she's iconic or maybe scary as Sissy Spacek. I
Yeah.
just like it's a little bit easier to get through than the original. I
Okay.
think the original was a little bit too kind of 70s in
That's
parts.
fair. That's fair. It is pretty 70s.
Yeah. Stand by Me, amazing movie. Stan, the original miniseries.
Mm. The original miniseries holds up. I watched it like maybe a year ago, like during the pandemic. And other than some like just some like cuts for like television, like they really couldn't curse or show as much gore or anything like that. Other than some of the things like that, like most of it's pretty solid still.
Yeah, I wish the new one could have been better.
Oh, I haven't watched the new one yet. I've heard
It's not great
Mm,
because they kind of jump around the timeline quite a bit, like that.
yeah.
Also, I felt like in the original there's a warmness
Hmm.
to it, especially I can't remember the character's name. He was like the kind of like the nerdy guy that kind of like turns bad. Yeah, he worked with Randall Flagg.
Yeah. What
And
was his name?
yeah, and he had the hots for like Molly Ringwald. I thought,
Yeah, yeah.
but like but when Ringwald was nice to that character, even though he didn't want to go out with them because she was
Right.
significantly older than him.
Right.
And the new one, like he was just like mean to him.
Mm,
I did not like that at all.
yeah.
The Green Mile, emotional, hard-hitting movie.
Yeah.
Lawrence Claiborne, and then the Dead Zone.
That was my other one. Dead Zone was like my honorable mention that was almost going to replace Maximum Overdrive. But I love the Dead Zone, but it's a movie that I really like and I respect. I think it's really well made and well acted and made. Like Cronenberg directed it, but like I the nostalgia factor for Maximum Overdrive trumped it for some reason to me. But
yeah. But my number one is gonna be Shawshank Redemption. I just think this is like one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen in my life.
yeah,
As far as like story goes and theme, this movie's about like hope and like brotherhood and friendship. I mean, Morgan Freeman's like on point. Probably one of my favorite characters. You see just how desperate he is to get out of here, and then you see him go, not rehabilitate, but he goes up for review 3 times in the movie, and by the third time, like he's just had it. Like he knows he's not going to get out of here. And he says, rehabilitated, it's just a fancy word, so you people can wear a suit and have a job. So either way, I don't give a shit. When I hear that, like, I see it maybe like either 2 ways. Is he really like just tired of being on review, knowing that he's never going to get out? Or was he faking it? Because the other times he, was trying to, say that he was sorry. That wasn't working, so I'm going to try this other way. And then he got out.
That's interesting. To me, I think at that point he had lost his friend, and he had lost a lot of the people that had already been in there with him. And to me, I think he's hit the end of his rope, or he's hit the end of like caring. To me, but I mean, I don't know. It's been a while since I watched it. Maybe I'll watch it again and I'll see it differently. I don't know. But yeah, all that stuff's like heartbreaking. Like with what's the old man's name who gets out first? Brooks. Whenever Brooks gets out, and all that stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, the last 20 minutes is probably like my favorite movie scene of all time. from like I'm talking like from the get busy living, get busy dying speech all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Him escaping and then him cheating the system where he stole all of the warden's money.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of which, I think Warden Norton is like one of the most underrated movie villains.
Oh yeah, I agree totally.
Yeah, I think
He's almost human. He's not like it's not like a monster, but he's just like he's human, but he's just conniving and despisable, despicable.
Yeah, and I feel like with any character that says they're a person of God, and then they do the complete opposite, and again going back to like Kathy Bates from Misery or like Margaret White, and then like they're completely a horrible person.
Right.
Like this dude was cheating the system. He was money laundering.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
and he's just as bad as any of the prisoners in there.
Yeah, and then when Tommy, the rock and roll greaser dude, comes in, and then you find out that in another prison he had a cellmate with somebody that he knew killed like a banker's wife, and then Andy was gonna use him to get out, get out of prison, the kind of erase it, on the fraud accusation, and then he kills Tommy. I'm like, I saw that for the first time. I'm like, you bastard!
Yeah, right.
And he only did that because he was using Andy.
Yeah, it's because he saw the potential in Andy to do his bidding and be able to like get away with it, to log through the books and do all that sort of stuff for him. Just a completely despicable character who kind of goes away. Like he is. To me, like he is not really considered like a villain, really, but he is the villain of that story.
Yeah.
It's great. It's solid. It's all good. Like it never gets old.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Clancy Brown is amazing in this movie. Yeah, I love Mr. Clancy Brown. Like he was just like a badass, again, another despicable character.
Oh yeah, this may be the first movie I saw Clancy Brown in.
Yeah, me too. Well, did the voice of Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob?
Yeah. What's the voice, Mr. Krabs? It's what's his name in Highlander? It's the villain in Highlander.
I got something to say. It's better to burn up than fade away.
All right. Isn't he in? Is he in? He's in the sequel. He's in Pet Sematary 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's had quite a bit of King experience.
Oh, speaking of Highlander, they're remaking it with Henry Cavill.
Oh.
That's interesting. I think it's due for a remake. I feel like it's due.
I think it is due for a remake. I don't know how I feel about Henry Cavill being.
I think he's gonna do.
Is he Highlander? Is he the Christopher Lambert?
I don't know if he's gonna be Connor McLeod.
Yeah, I don't know. Interesting.
I'm Connor McLeod.
I agree. I think Highlander probably could be remade and be remade really well.
Yeah. It is very 80s.
It's very 80s. The first one is completely different than its sequels, which introduced them as like. Have you ever seen the sequels Highlander, like The Quickening, the two? So the first one is about like ageless sort of like mortals who travel through, who like eventually live through time and have to kill each other in order to continue to live, that sort of thing. The second one does away with all that, and now they're aliens from another planet who come to Earth and they have to live.
What?
Yeah, it just completely rewrites all of it. I'm just like, what? Well, I will say Highlander 2 is a lot of fun, but it is not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. It completely rewrites everything that happened in the first one. But
that's gonna mess it up.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah, but anyways, guys, that's
Yeah, we went way off topic by the end of it. We were all in like Highlander land. Yeah,
it could only be one.
Right, it could only.
Yeah. I actually watched that for the first time last year.
Highlander. First one. Love Sean Connery in it. Christopher Lambert he's got a.
You know what's crazy? That dude's half blind.
Is he? I didn't know that.
Or he's partly blind. He's got his glasses, which he never wore in the movie. So he was in
Right.
the sword fight thing. Like he almost killed himself a few times.
God bless. Christopher
Yeah.
Lambert is a good-looking man, especially in the '80s, but he is not a great actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do love Highlander, so I can't knock it too hard.
Had a little Terminator vibe too.
Yeah, it does. It does have like a very, very sort of
Yeah, man out of
and it's all
time.
the lightning. I think it's all the lightning stuff, like when they do the quickening and all that sort of stuff. Like remind me of like the time travel jumps
Yeah, and you also have it's also a
there.
man out of time story.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But anyways, you have anything else you want to say about Stephen King before we wrap this up?
No, it's Stephen King is always, especially when I was a kid, been a sort of like inspiration for the darker things lying underneath culture and all the things that rest in the shadows. And while I've not always been a super fan of all of his books, there are some like classics out there, and I guess you could say the same thing with his movies too. There are some that borderline on bad, and there's some that are like masterpieces, like Shawshank Redemption. And so like I think it's always a mixed bag, but it's always a fun mixed bag,
Oh
regardless of
yeah.
what you want to pick. It's always going to at least be either bad fun or like fun or just really good. So I can't recommend it enough.
So one more question before we go. If you
Okay.
actually met the man and you're going to ask him one question, what would you ask him?
Mm. Oh, that's a hard question. I would say when are we getting another Richard what was it? Bachman. When are we getting another Richard Bachman book?
Yeah, that was this guy's name.
He wrote The Running Man underneath that, and he wrote like several other ones. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know The Running Man was one of them, which was like a real big departure into like sci-fi, which I love The Running Man too.
You can review that
But I would ask,
sometime.
yeah, I would ask like when would we get another Richard Bachman book, or if we've had other ones and we don't even know about it yet.
What I want to ask him if I can meet Stephen King is, why did you go with the name Pennywise?
Hmm.
It is so interesting. It's such an interesting name.
Right. I don't
Um,
know. I have no idea. Maybe he could answer. Maybe it's just a one-off. Maybe he's like, I just did a bunch of coke. I was
yeah,
like, Pennywise.
yeah. That movie was pretty. That book was really crazy.
Yeah, no, it's a nuts book with some okay adaptations.
Yeah, I think they
Some
made a
are better
mistake by
than
making
others.
it a two-part movie. I think it
Yeah,
should have
I
been a
think
miniseries.
the first one is pretty solid, and the second one has the same problems that the adult version and the old one has.
It
Is
was just
that
too
it
goofy.
feels, yeah, it's too disconnected. Like all the kid stuff like plays really well in both movies, like in the movie and the miniseries stuff. But like something about the transfer to like adults just doesn't
I thought they did a
hit
good
true. I
job
don't
with
know.
like the actors. The actors were all.
Yes.
It was just goofy.
Yeah, yeah. They still have the same in the second
What's
one.
his name? The guy that played the funny guy.
Bill
Richie.
Hader,
Yeah, Bill Hader. I thought
like
he was
the old one.
hilarious.
Oh yeah, Bill Hader is like great. And also he's probably the best part of like the remake,
Yeah.
or the sequel
Okay,
remake.
so in chapter 2, when Eddie goes down to the basement of
Mhm,
the pharmacy, and he sees a
mhm.
zombie, and the zombie throws up on her, and they start playing Angel in the Morning. What was that about?
I have no idea. I wonder the same thing. There was just so many just like choices. I was like, is this a comedy? Am I supposed to laugh? What's happening?
Yeah, well, I was
Uh,
thinking to myself like either I'm crazy
mhm.
or somebody's ringtone went off.
Yeah, it was almost like it's almost like the scene they shot didn't work, and so they decide to break it up with this like awkward like comedy beat,
Mm.
and then they just immediately dice that as well. You know what I mean? Like they were just like, I don't know. It's an odd scene. I also really dislike the Chinese restaurant scene, which is in both movies,
Oh,
with
I
both
liked
the
it. I
movie
liked
and
it.
I hate that scene. I hate it.
It was
It
one.
never plays for me. it never plays for me. It doesn't play as comedy or it doesn't scare me either. And so I'm just kind of like,
I like the part when the eyeball comes out and then Bill Hader goes, "My fucking cookie's looking at me." But
it is entertaining. I will say it's always entertaining.
Yeah, do I want to see? I want to see a show on Netflix or Hulu called Dairy Maine.
Oh,
yeah,
wait, is that new?
No, I want to see. I want this to happen.
I mean, have you seen Castle Rock?
I seen that the second season of it up until like 6, and then it started connecting back to the first.
Yeah, I haven't watched the second season. I've only seen the first season, and I'll say
episode 5 is really good. It's amazing.
Is the one with Sissy Spacek?
No, episode 5 of season 2.
Oh, okay. Well,
but then
season 1 the season 1 has that episode with Sissy Spacek where it's about like her memories and her going through Alzheimer's and all that stuff. It's amazing. It is so much better than the rest of the series all around it that it almost makes everything work for it.
Yeah, but what I want to see in this Dairy Maine show, I want to see like it land in whatever eventually became Dairy, and then and then it jumps back to every 27 years. And like them dealing with the upset the Leaders Club. I think that'd be so interesting.
Oh, that'd be great. Like if you could do like each episode, it's like jumping forward 27 years, 26, and we end it sort of where it starts. You know what I mean? Like it starts. Yeah. I'm
thinking more like the movie version of it. So it's gonna be like 1980. Like that's gonna be like the last episode of the show.
Yeah. That sounds solid. You should pitch it because I would watch that.
Yeah, that'd be so good. Well, I think a good first episode would be like the colonial times when they thought like everyone was a witch basically, and so I thought it'd be really cool if they thought this one woman was a witch, and then like all these children start disappearing, and they keep blaming on her. Saying it is witchcraft or it's like sacrifice like Satan or whatever, but it's really it that's doing all that.
I mean, in Aussie, that's solid.
Yeah, I don't know why. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Got me in.
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Netflix about that. I'm gonna King on the phone. Anyways, man, appreciate you doing this video again.
Yeah, this is super fun. We'll have to do it again sometime. We'll do another. I like doing these top 5. They're like a lot of fun to talk about. I feel like
John Carpenter next.
Okay. Done.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite directors.
I love John, especially like 80s, 70s, 80s John Carpenter.
Yeah, I feel like we needed.
Chef's kiss.
I feel like before like October, we need to review one more sci-fi movie.
Okay. All right.
And then we can like talk about, and then we can like do like a horror themed Halloween episode.
Done.
Yeah, I have a good idea for it when we get when we start recording.
We'll tease it out. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, guys, I've been Drew from Horror Sci-Fi Beyond with Eric White, Dean for watching, and you guys have a good one. Bye.